Hey everyone, welcome back to Nick and Nat's Nature Chat. I think it's a pretty well-known fact that geckos, except for crustaceans, can regenerate their tail when they lose them. But did you know that leopard geckos can regenerate their brain? Before we get into the science of how they can do this, let's talk a little bit about leopard geckos. Leopard geckos are a ground-dwelling species of lizard that are from the Middle East and parts of India. Unlike many other geckos that climb trees and walls, leopard geckos are terrestrial and live out in the desert. They spend much of their time sheltering in burrows to escape from the extreme daytime heat. One other distinct trait about leopard geckos is they actually have movable eyelids, so they can actually blink, unlike crested geckos and leachianus geckos. There are many species of lizards out there that can voluntarily drop their tail when they feel threatened. Interestingly, when they drop these tails, they can regenerate them, which means they can regenerate muscle, blood vessels, and even their spinal cord. This is crazy because humans cannot regenerate any kind of nervous tissue whatsoever. We can't do anything with our brain or our spinal cord, but leopard geckos can regenerate their spinal cord. So scientists wondered, what if they can regenerate their brains? So if you've ever cut yourself or broken a bone, you've seen your body repair itself, but it never fully regenerates to full function. Regeneration means restoring damaged tissues like muscle, and that way it can come back to full function. So the only person who can actually do this is Deadpool. Interestingly, leopard geckos, or geckos in general, aren't the only animals that can regenerate things. So zebrafish have also been used widely in research because they can generate their spinal cord as well as their heart. So when I was in undergrad doing my bachelor's, I worked in a research lab where we were studying regeneration of the zebrafish heart. And the reason scientists and we were interested in doing this was when humans have a heart attack, some of the tissue can die in the heart and we cannot regenerate that. And therefore there is poor usage of the heart in our body, and we want to be able to repair that. So we thought if we could figure out the underlying mechanism of why zebrafish can regenerate their heart, if we could apply that to humans and be able to regenerate or repair our hearts as well. So a zebrafish is incredibly different from a leopard gecko. So why do we care? So leopard geckos can regenerate parts of their nervous system, like their spinal cord, when they lose their tail. Humans can't regenerate any part of their nervous system, and it doesn't even heal properly. Most neurological damage is permanent. So that's why researchers want to turn to animals that do have these capabilities so we can look at the biological blueprints that humans lack. Scientists had a few questions with all this information. How are the new cells formed during regeneration, and what signals activate regeneration? Does the immune system influence regeneration? And why did mammals evolve backwards and not take on regeneration? It's important to note that regeneration research in modern laboratories is conducted under strict ethical oversight. Studies are designed to minimize distress and use the least invasive approaches possible while still answering critical biological questions. The goal is not harm, it is understanding. In this study, they were able to control for neuronal loss by avoiding mechanical trauma, and were able to observe the brain's natural response to injury. After injury, scientists tracked changes over time at multiple intervals. They looked for evidence of cell proliferation, which is the formation of new cells. They looked for evidence of new brain cells, and they also looked for evidence of an immune response. Let's have a look at some of the data. The scientists were able to look at various parts of the brain so that way they could see cellular structures that was happening after the injury. So right here are two different types of ways we can look at the brain in the lab. One of which is just looking at brain tissue versus the cells, and the cells will stain this darker purple for the nuclei that's inside of the cell. And then we have a light microscopy image here where we can see just the individual cells and stain for proteins that can indicate various things. All right, so this image right here in A is our baseline. This is what the brain should look like without an injury and without regeneration. So if we take a kind of glance at this, we can see the formation of cells in here, and then the rest of the brain tissue surrounding it. So if we go to 4 days after injury, we can see that there are far less cells in this part of the injury of the brain, and these arrows are pointing at cells that are dying. The scientists further validated these findings by doing fluorescent microscopy, and we're seeing that our baseline has a whole bunch of these healthy cells here in blue, and then when we go to 4 days after injury, we can see that in pink that there are dying cells here as well 4 days after injury. 30 days after this injury, they were able to see that there were healthy cells replacing these dying cells in the brain. So what we're seeing is that 30 days after injury, the brain is looking more like our baseline where there was no injury, indicating that there's regeneration of the brain. The evidence is pretty clear that after 30 days post-injury, that leopard geckos can regenerate their brain, and that is due to stem cells. Stem cells are very complex cells that can just turn into anything that the body needs when it needs it. So if you've ever heard of somebody getting stem cell therapy, it's used to help in repairing damaged tissues. So leopard geckos have their own version of stem cell therapy basically. They just don't use modern medicine. They use their own bodies. Now that these scientists have determined that leopard geckos can fully regenerate their brains, they want to know, is it a functional regeneration and not just a physical regeneration? So they measured the activity of the door being open to their enclosure. A 5 is the normal reaction score before the injury, and anything down to a 3 is going to be slightly lethargic but still reactive to the door being open. So we can see as early as 2 days after the injury, activity goes down in these geckos. And then it slowly increases over time, and then at about day 30, when the brain is mostly regenerated, we're seeing that activity increase as well. They also assess their ability to capture prey, which would then challenge their motor skills and depth perception in their brain. So 5 is normal, their normal ability to capture prey. And then 2 days after injury, that goes down significantly where they really struggle to capture prey, but they were still hand-fed if they weren't able to capture any prey. And we can see over time that it slightly increases again, and then again at that day 30 mark, when the brain is regenerated, we're seeing an increase in their ability to capture prey. This data shows that the leopard geckos can not only regenerate their brain physically, but they can regenerate the function of their brains as well. Another thing to mention is that in humans, when we have an overactivation or prolonged activation of our immune system during an injury in our brain, it results in scarring and sustains further injury. In leopard geckos, though, this study showed that while the immune system was activated during the regeneration process, it showed that they were actively eating and degrading the dead cells so that way new ones could form in their path. Basically, there was no evidence of permanent damage or scarring in the leopard gecko brain. Overall, the study showed that leopard geckos can regenerate their brains both physically and functionally. We hope to one day use these findings to translate them into healing of the human brain. While some people think leopard geckos are lame, they're really cool. It's as close to Deadpool as you can get. Hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thanks Negan for being a willing participant in our video and modeling how awesome leopard geckos are. We'll see you in the next one.